like, okay, obviously in every fleet, there's different levels of if you know kind of guys.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And you're
It's a
definitely,
peer
and you're one of the
of
if you know guys.
Yes.
And so that's the level.
Right.
That's kind of like, it's disrespectful.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you really think about it, like to say that, and that's why when so-and-so said, if that's who, don't pick it up. I mean, I still picked it up. I was like, yeah, whatever, like that.
Yeah. Oh, he yelled down and was like,
yeah,
I'll fire you if you answer Doug's phone call.
He's getting paid. That's a different. I wasn't getting paid. So like, shit, when you throw me off the boat.
That was the last time he ever fished with him.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Good.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for driving all the way down from Jupiter and risking your life and limb in South Florida's congested traffic.
It was sketchy for a little while there, but I made it.
Yeah. Did it rain on you?
Yep. A couple times.
Yeah, a couple times. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, I tried to control it, but you win some, you lose some.
Yep.
So I'm bringing on the show today my good buddy Doug Covin, Captain Doug Covin. Sorry. And we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, but first I want you guys to get to know Doug. He's a very cool guy. He's an absolute pro, and very storied and legendary captain in South Florida. And I'm stoked that you're here. We've been talking for a while about getting this show together, so I'm glad we're able to finally have you in here, drinking some rum, hanging out, right? So welcome to the Connected by Water podcast, powered by Joey Cardi Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and fueled by our good friends at Papa's Pilar Room, who remind you never to be a spectator. Nick's going to be proud of me because I'm going to announce my do-gooder right off the bat. I am prepared. I got the whole sheet and everything like that. So we do this program with Starbright, right? So we got this bucket full of Starbright Solutions stuff. Salt off and the reggae sponge and citrus degreaser and fuel additive and like all kinds of stuff in there from Starbright. And it's about $200 worth of stuff. The bucket comes with it. And every week we announce, people call in or email in or social media message and whatever you call it these days. And they'll nominate people. And just so you know, if you do want to nominate somebody, you can just go at Dennis Friel Art, at Connected by Water, at C Redwine, SEA Redwine, or at Starbright_com and nominate whoever you want that's doing good in your coastal community, whether it be beach cleanups or cleaning up the intercoastal or gathering up people. And I'm going to read you a prime example of who won this week, of what everyone should try to emulate. And strive for. And you don't have to message all those accounts. You just message any one of them to submit your nomination of who you think is a do-gooder, #do-gooder. And this is presented by Starbright in collaboration with what we're doing and Papa's Pilar Rum. So this week's winner of the Starbright do-gooder program is the Rapp family. So this family is no stranger to the coastal community. Captain Greg and Amber Rapp own Sea Leveler sport fishing charters, and they have since 2002. And they have a fleet of 5 boats. And Captain Dustin Rapp runs the 00 Ocean Obsession party boat, and Captain Ronnie Rapp runs one of the Sea Leveler offshore boats. On top of this impressive fleet, the family also runs the Time and Tide Eco Tour boat out of Port Canaveral and Central Florida Airboat Tours. This family is as fishy as it comes, and all go above and beyond keeping our waterways clean. All members have participated in the numerous clam releases and trash cleanups, and they understand the impact that we have on environments. Their livelihoods depend on our water staying as clean as possible for generations to come. So congratulations to the Rapp family. I'm sure you guys are going to all be getting more than one bucket, so there's so many of you. But thank you very much for being a do-gooder and being good stewards of our coastal community and environment. So congrats to you guys. So we're going to kick it off like that.
Perfect. Yeah, I got some on mine. I got to write down those who descended in.
So, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Give me a little background on you so everyone here in the audience understands who I'm speaking with. You've been a captain, been on the water how long?
2000 was my first captain's job. I got to go back before that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a third generation Miamian.
So you're from Miami?
Yeah.
Originally. Okay.
My dad was a Bud and Mary's captain. Actually, in the new book, Bud and Mary's book,
Mhm.
they actually get to mention my dad.
Really?
Scott Stanzik got to start mating for my dad. We know the Stanziks well. I grew up as a little dock rat at Bud and Mary's.
Gotcha.
So I grew up in the charter industry. My dad was one of the first pioneer boats to start fishing Cozumel. And I'd always fished. My father passed away when I was 14 and went to college, went that whole direction, came back to Miami. My brother's a big developer in Miami and got recruited onto a charter boat because I'd always fished. We had a 23 contender and went to work with my brother a little bit in the construction business when his company was first taken off. And I got recruited onto a charter boat on Key Biscayne, right there where L&H and some great fishermen came out of. And one day when I was just working there part-time, fishing a couple of days a week, Jimbo O'Neill Jr. was the traveling captain that we knew that was always going to exotic places like St. Thomas and Bahamas and everything, was always gone. Came walking down the dock and said, hey, I have a brand new charter boat that it was a 44, I believe it was, Annie Mortensen. And he's like, we're restoring it. I have a backer. It was at a boatyard up in Lauderdale. And he goes, I need help. I can't pay you right now. I can pay you by taking you on trips, and we're going to do charters and go to the Bahamas and fish tournaments. And I had just always fished personally, always grew up fishing in the Keys, as you know, my dad owned the charter boat, little dock rat. And I was now mating and fish tournaments on my own, sailfish tournaments back in the day. And I was like, I know nothing about boats. I didn't grow up as a family mechanic type thing. I couldn't fix anything. I was like, I just know how to fish. That's it. I'm like, I should learn a little bit about boats. All other mates said, no, I'm not going to come work for free. And I was like, yeah, I've never even been to a boatyard. I went within 2 days of just showing up at the boatyard to help do wax or do whatever they told me to do. His backer said, put that kid on salary, hire him full time. Within a couple weeks, when the boat was ready and we were ready to take off to the islands, there was a lot better mates there at the time. We're like, hey, I was hoping to get the job. Jimbo came to him and he said, sorry, Doug's hired. He was willing to work for free, and he's a hard worker.
Mm-hmm. Willing to work for free. It's kind of a key component too, right?
And
hard worker.
Yeah, I wanted to learn. I was not spoiled. I was like, yeah, let's, whatever it takes. I'm kind of getting into this industry, but I never thought I'd do this for a living, because growing up in the Keys at the time,
right,
Keys mates and captains and crews that I grew up around didn't have all their teeth. Maybe drank a little too much. Maybe too many
it's funny you bring that. I never thought you could do this for a living, because I thought about that same way for the longest time with painting fish for a living. That's going to the story that we talked about before we started recording, is that's kind of like halfway why I took that job. I'm like, no, it's like just this for a living.
Something to do for now.
Yeah, I just love painting fish, but eventually the clouds parted and it worked out.
It was a part-time thing, and the boat, it was the Poseidon, which is now the Poseidon, I think 2 or 3 is still in Deerfield. Mm-hmm. And we followed around yachts and did charters, and actually went and fished, I think it was 96 or 97, the first BBC I ever fished, our charter, was Sandra McMillan from the Sandman.
Okay.
And we went over there, and not a lot of people know him nowadays, but Dave Withers, famous captain, I remember sitting there and after fishing and trolling around and missing a couple of blue marlins or not getting bit all day. It was Bahamas back then. This is before dredges, before teasers, everything, just pulling four lures, and it was all nothing but kill tournaments. The camaraderie at the end and getting to know people, I was like, it's pretty cool. At the end of the first season, I came back, my brother's business took off, and he said, hey, you want to come work things are going good, you can come work full time. And I said, no, I know what I want to do now. This is it. And
you had a connected by water moment.
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice.
A couple years later, we were on a charter in Lyford, It's lifeless, as people say.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that chartered us at the time was the third richest person in the world at the time.
Okay.
Bill Gates was 48, and this was this Russian guy that was worth, I think, 44 at the time, 43. And we took him on a charter, and his yacht captain came down and said, hey, he wants you to come talk to him. And I was like, and he threw a number at me and says, I was just a mate on the boat. And he goes, I want you to be my captain. And that was in 2000. Started running his. It was a brand new 44 Ryko. Started, basically moved to Bahamas running his boat. Then would still freelance at the time. And for years after, I ended up working with Louis Bacardi for years on the rum bum. And basically all I wanted to do was travel the world and chase blue marlin and fish marlin tournaments, and got to fish from Hawaii to Bermuda to everywhere.
So all right, we discussed this a little bit too before the show. So you went from the Russian guy to Louis.
Yeah.
Right. So what was that transition like? Like, I mean, was that like a complete 180 from what you're used to seeing? Because it's like you're in a different environment now on that Bacardi boat.
Yeah.
Right?
So Jimbo, the original from Poseidon, who brought me in, who had hired me on the charter boat, ends up going to work for Louis, and he back up a little bit. The way I got the captain's job for the Russian guy, the charter was someone else was going for the job, and the charter said, "Hey, here's this Russian guy. He wants you to, we're going to take him out, but here's." I forget his name. Good guy. He's going for the job, and they didn't want to bring me along. And Jimbo said the boat doesn't leave the dock without Doug. And I'm not sure why he didn't want to bring me along. We went out. We're fishing on Lyford. The guy's from up north and wanted to troll Hawaiian eyes and ballyhoo for tunas. And I sat and he was like, the boat's not leaving without Doug. This guy can go do whatever he wants, but Doug's coming on a boat. After a couple hours of trolling around, not catching anything, and here's this Russian guy sitting in the corner, and his demeanor is getting worse and worse. The guy who had set up the charter was like, well, maybe we can lie bait a little bit, and goes to the Russian guy and says, hey, this guy, he's going for the job. He's doing everything, but we're going to try lie baiting. So that guy over there sitting in the corner, which is me, he's a live bait guy, so we're going to have him put stuff out if that's all right with you. And the Russian guy's like, I don't care. I want to catch something. So we stopped and put out some liveys and caught some yellowfins real quick.
Yeah, and then you're hired.
And that's
you break you guys back and then you get hired,
yeah,
right?
And no, literally when the yacht captain came down to me, I was like, no, it's that guy over there that's going for the job. And he goes, no. He goes, he wants to talk. Right. He wants to talk to you. Yeah. So I worked for him for years, and went during the summer, he took off.
None of those yellowfin got sharked, right?
No, not at the time. No. None of the yellowfins got sharked. This is back in the day. So he took off.
That's foreshadowing, by the way.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good segue, maybe. So he wasn't there, and he was like, "What do you want to do this summer?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go." We fished the whole BBC. He goes, "Here, take the boat, put your crew together. I'm not even going to show up. He gave me $100,000 cash." And
really?
So he gave me $50,000 cash, and he goes, the next $50,000 you can pick up on the way there. And all different stories. Funny. I was 20 something at the time. I had to walk in a bank and walk out with $50,000 cash to go fish.
Like the Monopoly guy, like walking down the street.
Yeah. Like I said, this guy was real money. This is crazy. So and then he wasn't there. He let us fish a tournament. Then he said, "Hey, whatever you want to do this summer." I jumped on with Dave Withers and went and fished St. Thomas. And Jim was down there and said, "Hey, we're starting, Lou's getting a new boat, another Bertram at the time, and a new rum bum, and we're going to start traveling and fishing." And I was like, I just want to keep chasing blue marlin. I got the bug, and that's all I wanted to do is go, instead of sitting there in Lyford and fish tuna every winter for a little bit. I was like, no, I'm young enough. I want to travel like most mates do, and want to go chase fish tournaments and chase blue marlin, and we ended up going everywhere. We were one of the first boats at the time. We went to, of its size, it was a 54 Bertram. We did Bermuda. 3 of us took the boat there, went straight from Bermuda to Puerto Rico with just 3 people on a boat.
Chugging.
Yeah. Chugging. So
Wow.
that was quite the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Now I hear about
That's a
guys,
long way from Bermuda to Puerto Rico.
I think it's 4 days.
Yeah.
It was like 900 or something. And I was the one figuring out mileage where they can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'd figure out the mileage going
Figuring
to.
if we could make it.
Well,
Yeah.
Jimbo was like, here, figure out the fuel burn. And we left Marsh Harbor to go to Bermuda. And after spending 2 months in Bermuda, the original plan was to cut through the Bahamas. And we're like, we got 2 weeks to make it to St. Thomas. And I went to him. I was like, I think we can go straight. Look at the charts. And we can get there a lot quicker so we can have a week off.
Right.
And I was like, is there any currents or anything we're going to run into? He said, I don't know. I'm like, all right, bring an extra 50 gallons. Let's go.
Gulfstream.
Not out there.
No. Well, I mean, you're going to run through it, no?
Nope.
No, not at all. Oh, you're on the outskirts of it. That's right. You're
so
still outside
far
of it. Yeah.
East. Yeah, you don't realize. Bermuda, it was basically.
Yeah, you got the
from
map in my head
Bermuda
now.
to
Yeah.
Puerto Rico is almost due south. And at the time, I don't know if anyone has done it or anyone in that small of a boat, 54. Now you hear about these 80-foot enclosed bridge boats that go chug, and they're like, oh, we need 6 people to chug to Bermuda. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how we used to do it.
Wow.
So I did that a lot.
And then when was that?
That was in early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So you're even beyond a lot of the technology that's now, or the accessibility that's now. I mean, like,
Yeah, we had just radar. There was no calling.
Pretty ballsy thing.
There was no internet weather service or anything like that. So much so. And then got lucky enough and got to fish with Lindsay Ford. Won the whole right around that time. Won the BBC in 2004 and got some good jobs from that. That might have been my one of the better years that I got to have to fish, win the whole BBC. Almost won the World Cup. Killed a 732 in Marsh Harbor. Got second place. Nobody remembers second place of the World Cup. And then I got, in 2012, I knew Jeff Donahue, who was a salesman manager of Hatteras, and recruited me for the Hatteraskell job. And this was after that. There was a 10-year period that I traveled around on the Rum Bum doing the WBS and got to do Cabo and all the places, and got to fish Hawaii, and just did nothing but travel back and forth. And just, we were gone about 8 months a year. And then I got recruited to run the Hatteraskell boat, which I got married, and I thought that I was going to be the next Terry and Bonnie Stansel. And we did it for a year. Had one of the, what a great time working for them. They would say, here's a credit card, you and your wife take the boat and take it to Biloxi and be there in a month. Everything's paid for. And then we'll show up and fish the tournament. So I thought that was going to be the end all. But Brunswick, which was the parent company of Hatteras at the time, sold it, and they couldn't keep it going. And the company I work for now bought that. That was 8 years ago, or more now. That was 2012, so 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I've been with the company ever since. I bought that 63 Hatteras, and I stayed with the boat, and didn't think I'd ever settle down. Thought I'd always be traveling, but I work for it's a corporate program now. We did a year in Miami, but they moved the program up to Jupiter, to Palm Beach, and we fish out of Palm Beach in Jupiter, and I fish about more than anybody out there.
Yeah.
We do on average 120 days a year. We do over 400 guests a year. It's like a sales incentive program where they send people in from all over the U.S., fly them in. We still travel, usually 2 to 3 months a year. Since COVID, we haven't been traveling. Just the logistics of getting people with tests and in and out of Bahamas. But I've taken them up to Ocean City. I've taken them in St. Thomas. We usually do about 3 months a year in Bahamas. But all fall, winter, we're fishing 4 days a week at Palm Beach. They send guests in, and the guests fish for 2 days at a time, and 6 to 8 guests at a time. Fishing for, it's not charter, so it's fishing for whatever I want to do.
Right.
So I can shark fish, I can sailfish, I can do whatever I want. So no,
you get a lot of people asking to go shark fishing specifically. Every now and then, maybe.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, it's a subject that you can't avoid.
Right.
Because of the shark interactions.
Right.
So, being how I've become involved with this whole shark depredation issue, I've and the reason I'm in, become the gotten on the page and become administrator of the Sportsmen Fighting for Marine Balance page. Not only is because of my friendship with Pat, that I knew back in the day traveling. That's where I first met Pat 20 years ago, is because fishing in Miami my whole life, in the Keys and the Bahamas, you always, something that happens. You get, anyone's ever fished Harbor Island, you're gonna go out to James Point or Shallow Ground. You're gonna get tunas eaten by sharks. They follow around schools of tuna. It happens. But I'd never seen it as bad as it was until I first brought the boat up to Palm Beach and started fishing out here, and realizing that not even though I started adjusting, I had to stop fishing a bottom rod. I had to stop, started moving and everything. I was like, wow, what's this?
Yeah.
Pretty, St. Thomas has always been known for the tiger sharks eating the blue marlin, but it's one of the reasons why it's such a cool fishery in St. Thomas, because the blue marlin stay on the surface. But out of every season you go there, go there for 3 months, you might lose 1 or 2 blue marlin. It's crazy, and you have 1,000-pound tiger sharks swimming around, but it kind of almost adds to it. It's pretty cool.
Right.
But you'll still catch, you're there for 3 months, you catch 30 blue marlin, 40 blue marlin, you might have 1 or 2 eaten. It's not the end of the world.
There's different levels to this. And when I say this, what I mean is professional captains, just people making a living on the water. And there's an industry to this whole scene that we're in. And there's different levels to it. There's guys that maybe do it locally, or they do it on a small scale, or they just want to pick some low-hanging fruit customers and things like that. They don't have a lot of outbound experience like you do, or just like maybe just locally fished their whole lives. They know the waters really well, and they figure they're going to open up a charter business, right? Nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing anybody saying anything like that. That's a great way to make a living, and that makes you happy. Awesome, right? And then there's other guys are just going to be like, all right, well, I tournament fish a lot, and I'm going to take on out a high-end clientele. I'm still going to go local. Maybe I'll make some Bahamas runs and stuff like that. But I think, you have answered the question when I introduced you as this guy's a pro. And you don't get much higher than you in the life that you've experienced. And you go about it in a very professional way. This is my livelihood, this is my life, and we do it on the highest level possible in the world. Right? And I wanted to make that clear going into the next phases of our discussion. And you brought up Pat, and I think it's really interesting to segue right into Pat before we get into this, because I texted you or tagged you in something, whatever. I can't remember how it was, but 2 years ago, last week, was the first time we brought Patrick Price onto the show. And he was on, I think, 3 times in total. And God rest his soul, Pat. We all miss Pat very much. But Pat was the one that we were talking with, and he was one really bringing to light the issues on shark depredation and just the impact that it's having on our fisheries, on our professional captains, and and the thing that we went through with Thomas Osborne and his lines getting cut and bringing them on the show is really what brought Pat in to the show. So, and you are up there in Jupiter, kind of in that circle with that whole. There's kind of like a vibe up there that you're locked into, and it's a different scene than the Pompano scene, I guess, is my point for bringing that up. But we're all kind of connected, right? And we very much all got connected through this. So I wanted to just mention Pat first of all. Every chance we get, we try to mention Pat. But also just the impact that he had on all of us. And the leadership that he displayed throughout it all, and the level-headedness that he displayed throughout it all. And I want to just say before because we're going to talk about shark depredation and everything today, and your role in that, and the evolution of how we got here. And Pat was really on the forefront of doing that, but he started that page, the Sportsman Fighting for Marine Balance, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And now you have taken it over since his passing.
Yeah, he the whole Connected by Water. I have a picture of a blue marlin next to the boat that we're releasing. That he was traveling around with. I think Todd was the captain, and we took their center console out in Puerto Rico and just had a blast and released like a 250 and got a real cool picture of swimming next to the boat. And I got a cool frame. This is before iPhones. This is, this like a panoramic thing you see.
Yeah, like a throwaway camera kind of
Yeah,
thing?
like a throwaway camera.
Yeah.
You could do the panoramic. And it just came out to be a great picture of the fish next to the boat. And I remember when I told my wife that Pat was coming over to talk about this page, and I ended up helping him out on the webpage. I was like, that picture has been sitting in our mantle for a while. I'm like, I took that with him, and I had lost touch with him, and years, this was before he had the whole big beard. This was, 10 years earlier. And then when I had come up here and I realized what a huge issue it was, and I can't remember the first time we spoke to each other about it. But having gone to college and I could write, and I can edit it and everything, I was like, yeah, I'll help you write letters. I'm all about this. And I've also been a big member of the Billfish Foundation and got to win 3 times top release captain for Billfish Foundation. So big fan of Ellen Page's. And when I realized Pat was trying to do something about this, I jumped on the bandwagon and I was like, here, I have Ellen's number. Let's talk to Ellen. I'm like, and I called Bouncer. I used to fish with Bouncer. I called, Joe Niebreg, used to fish on tournaments and Contender 1. And I had the connections, I think that Pat didn't have. And I was like, and Pat was like, yes. And they came over to my house and we sat there for hours, many times. And we were like, what do we do? And for the couple years, some 2 years before he passed, that we actually worked on this, and all the way up to today, right this second. I think a big question's always been, what do we do?
Right.
But we have to do something.
Yeah. I want to interject something right there, and and I go back to now. You knew Pat way longer than I did. I only knew Pat for the 2 years. And he made an impact. I mean, I was in the middle of wrapping or designing the wrap for his boat when he went to the hospital. It was like we caught on together very quickly. I only knew him for a very short period of time, right? But he had a great impact on my life. You met him back in the old Coral Springs studio. I still remember the second he walked in the door and I saw him physically for the first time. Like that's like how recent everything was with Pat and everything. But and we got to doing all this stuff together. But I want to, if people get the chance, if whoever's listening to this or watching this right now, go back to that first episode. I don't know what episode number it is, but it's with Pat Price, Thomas Osborne, Skip Dana, and Art Sapp. We're all in the room for this initial conversation. And I want everyone to understand that things were said on that podcast, like, we're not for the annihilation of a species. We're not for just killing unjustifiably and everything like that. The amount of sharks. We're for a balance, and that's why the page was, remember that. You and I are involved in a very lengthy text-based conversation where we were trying to figure out the name of that group. And, we came on, we're searching for balance. And I want people to understand that that's really the continuing theory and theme in this is balance, and not just straight up killing a species or killing for fun or anything like that. And I think it's important to start this conversation off by at least saying that.
There's a lot of people. The original name of the page was Tax the Taxman.
Right.
We got a lot of blowback when we changed it. There was a long discussion about changing it, about watermen for balance. And we spent weeks and weeks trying to figure out what name to put in. Anyone that was involved, we put it out there too. We texted, talked to, but it wasn't about just killing sharks. And we realized that, hey, we're going to have to, not only do we care about the ecosystem, and the main reason that we're discussing this is not just because we want to go kill sharks, but because, like I was telling you earlier, they're a pain. I hate killing sharks. I don't like catching sharks.
Right.
Some people do. Get on them. It's not my thing. I like catching and releasing sailfish and billfish in general. I like catching some muttons. I like catching some cobia to eat, but I'm more about fishing in general. And majority of fishing is catch and release, I think, in my opinion. Commercial fishermen
I agree.
may disagree, but there's plenty of commercial fishermen that disagree. But they're about catching fish to eat, about catching fish for the sport of it. And so that really has nothing to do with sharks. There's not a lot of sport in catching sharks. They don't fight well. There's nothing about it. So that's how the name Sportsman came. And we actually kicked off a bunch of people on the page that had a complete come apart when we changed the name. And there was I remember someone put a post recently on the page, and I think it might have gotten one like, no one really, the name's appropriate, I think.
No, the name is definitely appropriate. And I think, we've had some conversations with divers and other people that make their living under the water. And there's certainly arguments for that side that we'll probably bring in more and more to the table as this conversation goes on. I mean, we want to make sure that everyone gets represented on all sides and voice your opinion. We definitely do not want to make any sort of conversations in a vacuum to where we're only hearing yourselves, right? And there's no point to that. But, we definitely feel that there's something can be done, but in your experience so far going through this, where do you think it's headed? Like, as far as when we first started it, I understand that a lot of people have issues when there's a tournament. We could talk about the tournament that just happened, and a lot of people had issues with some of the things that have been said on pages, and which I'll just say, listen, everyone says things on social media pages and if everything gets recorded and documented on every step of the way, that we'd all probably be getting taken away by the Gestapo at some point or other in our lives. Right?
I was completely guilty of it.
Yeah. And people are frustrated on both sides
because
everyone's are saying things that are just absolutely. It's like almost like gotten out of hand a little bit.
The tournament might have had 6 people on it. I had messed up by telling one I wanted a release tournament. There's no way we could have had a release tournament at that time. Everyone said no way. The first mention of it said no. There's too many sharks out there. What's that going to do? So people were like, "What am I going to release a shark for?" I was like, "Just do what you want, but and then release it." And I said that, which inferred, "Oh, just kill it," or get the picture or release and then kill it. I not thinking, like you just said, like just saying stuff on social media. because I said that, that got quoted, and people on a page and the divers on the page, which we've kicked a lot of them off, but in hindsight, I actually welcome more now. We're more inviting to them because it's not about fishermen, it's about a marine balance.
Mm-hmm.
And they took that and they said, oh, here comes the shark tournament where everyone's going to go out and kill a bunch of sharks. It didn't happen. Because of their going to what your original question about the future, where it's going to go, we weren't sure. The shark tournament, in my opinion, was an absolutely complete success. Thank you, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
He was willing and fly. They really went out there. I was going through shoulder surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be that much part of it as much as I'd like to have been. And they, as many threats to them, personal threats, which is a whole different subject, crazy.
That part of it really drives me up the wall.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For
the insanity that some of the things
killing,
to the level of things are being taken is just absolutely. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. There's commercial fishermen out there that are still fishing for sharks. You have someone like Mark the Shark posts a dead shark every day,
mm-hmm.
and but that has to do with the type of people, some of the type of people that we're dealing with, that you're getting someone from the Middle East sending, you shouldn't kill any sharks,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's fine. You're getting someone from Wisconsin that says, oh my God, wants to send you a death threat because you're killing sharks. Like, be a little open-minded. This is not Wisconsin.
Right.
You don't have a shark problem there. I know it's hard for you to imagine because you watch so much Discovery Channel. This is what's going on our eastern seaboard. And this is not just, on a side note, this is not just South Florida, by the way. And this is not just Florida. I got a call when we first started this whole thing from one of the Wicked Tuna guys, one of the captains,
mm-hmm.
Greg. Rambled on for about half an hour or an hour. We talked about, and he goes, how bad it is up there in the Outer Banks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, and it was one of the guys with a distinct voice. It was pretty
mm-hmm.
neat. Like that's the guy. I had to go, I'm like, that's that guy, on Wicked Tuna.
So in your mind, what are we talking about here? Like, because ultimately speaking, like from my perspective, as a marine life artist, as someone who makes a living recreating these things on canvas and paper and, of all species, I have an admiration for sharks. I really do. I mean, I think they're beautiful creatures. I mean, they're very fast, they're ferocious, they're A-line predators and, apex predators. And, but, I'm also born and raised a fisherman, and as we stated before, fishing is one of the greatest American traditions there is. And, we believe in that. And there's obviously, an imbalance going on. So, ultimately, what message are we delivering, to people right now?
You touched on this. It's the imbalance. The ecosystem, and I believe human beings are part of the ecosystem. Without having the stats and the number, and I'm just a guy that goes out fishing at the end of the day. And I take people out fishing, and I want the sport of fishing to continue forever because as much as it's done in my life, and I can see how well it affects other people's life. As long as there's fishing, which I don't see human beings ever stop fishing. It's been around forever. We need regulations as the population of human beings grow and fishing expands to help feed people or just to catch and release. We need regulations to make sure that we're not destroying our ecosystem and killing everything out. So whether a fisherman agrees with exact numbers or not, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any fisherman in the world or any human being in the world to say, no, we should be able to catch everything we want and kill everything we want. No, that makes no sense. Anyone with half a brain realizes that you can only catch so much.
Yeah, I mean,
You can only kill so much.
right. The ultimate conservationist is the sportsman that actually lives in that ecosystem and thrives in that ecosystem. They're the ones that want to protect it more than anybody else, more than the person that sits in their house and watches the Discovery Channel and does nothing else. Right? That's the person that's on ground zero. We've talked about the boots on the ground aspect of this and say, no, those are the guys that actually are really going to protect it. And this also speaks to a little bit about that question we talked about beforehand when people say, oh, aren't you now in their environment?
It's our environment. Okay. We all, we have to coexist, so to speak. And in reality, we're not going to stop people from fishing. Okay. As much as there are a lot of people that without which there's
and time
no
out, nobody wants
whatsoever.
to stop anybody from diving either.
Yeah, no one wants to stop. Yeah, exactly. So no one wants to stop anyone from diving. And honestly, I'm one of the few people on the page. I was like, fine, you don't want to go feed sharks. I disagree with feeding wild animals. I say it trains them. I wish you could just go dive with sharks without feeding them. And I had a conversation with someone on one of their pages and said, hey, you're better than that. Go dive with sharks. You don't need to go feed them.
Right.
And I'm all about sanctuaries where the sharks are always here and go, swim with them and see them. That's great. That's where let's have a bunch of sharks around here, where they go dive with them. But I don't want to get in the subject of diving with sharks. Honestly, it's a whole different argument. I think that's not the important thing.
I think, and I've stated this before too on the show, where it's like, I don't think that's ultimately the problem. I think that, it's maybe a contributor, but if it is, it's probably on a very small scale.
Well, in my opinion, correct, because they don't dive with sharks in the Outer Banks, and they have a huge, and the tuna population is getting wiped out in Outer Banks.
Yeah, exactly. I think the population of it all is just way too vast for a couple of groups of people going out feeding sharks to be the reason that it's happening.
Correct. We have an issue in Jupiter because there's a unique aspect where when FWC pushed, they were on our side and wanted no shark feeding allowed, and so they said in Florida waters no shark feeding allowed, and Florida waters stopped 3 miles out.
And why did they originally do that? You said it was a youth issue?
No, Rodney Barreto pushed it. FWC said there was shark feedings and didn't want shark feedings in state waters. And their rule of law only extends 3 miles out.
Right.
So they saw something wrong with shark feeding. They were against it. So they stopped it. Well, it was very easy for the shark feeding boats to say, they're not going to do it in a lot of places where once you go 3 miles out, you're in 500 feet of water. Right. You can go out there and chum a bunch of sharks and nothing's going to show up. But if in 3 miles out, they go out and you're on the Jupiter ledge is right at 3.1 miles out, whatever it might be, just over 3 miles. They're like, that's a perfect spot. We can go. And so they started going there. Well, that also happens to be the spot that everyone's fishing. All the sailfish are coming through. So it kind of backfired. In hindsight, we should say shark feeding is allowed in 40 feet of water right here between these buoys. And that's it. Everyone knows. It's the same as our guest that we invited that didn't want to come on in the Bahamas. They have shark feeding. They have the Tiger Beach there and they shark feed. But they don't have buoys around that say, hey, the sailboat pulling up with her kids on the one day you're not shark feeding happens to anchor there and that go for a swim with their kids in the water. There's no signs or buoys that say, hey, this is a shark feeding area.
Yeah.
So, and then someone gets bit in that area. So there should shark feeding, fine, but they should do it in areas that are agreed upon and those areas shouldn't overlap in the same spots I think that we're fishing on. So that's something tough to make happen, but I agree with you. I don't think it'd be as much of an issue if it was only Jupiter complaining about too many sharks. It'd be obvious because in Jupiter this is where all shark feeding goes. But because we're eating shark,
Right, and then that was part of the discussion, right? We're saying, oh, the problem's worse in Jupiter, and it's because of the people feeding sharks and everything like that. Well, the problem is, if you want to call it a problem, right? The issue is more vast than that, right? And listen, I'm talking to captains all day long. These are my customers, right? And like just hearing it all day long, and it's incessant. It's incessant. I'm just like, everybody I talk to, basically, oh, how was your trip? Right? Because everyone's always taking trips, right? How was your trip? Oh, I know you guys were over the Bahamas, and oh man, the sharks. Oh man, the sharks. And that's all I hear, right? And even people like locals in the Bahamas are saying, yeah, I've never seen it this bad, and never been like this ever. And so, I mean, what I would love to just really get to the bottom of, like, what would be viable solutions? I mean, and how much of this has to do with, like, the depletion of the long lining, shark long lining,
the
which I think is more of the effect on this than anything.
I agree. The best viable solution that being at, like, I would say, the forefront of this and discussing it a lot and hearing everything, the only easiest solution, I would say, is making our local shark population what's called MSC certified. It's an eco label on them, to where it will raise the price of shark meat. It makes certain grocery stores that are willing to carry sharks, which there's a bunch apparently, and they'll buy more shark meat or raise the price of shark meat. The few people that have shark, the long line boats that have shark permits, the shark fishing boats, because there's a lot of guys that have shark permits that aren't being used right now because it's not worth anything, because of the no one wants to sell sharks anymore.
Right.
There's demand for them, but no one wants to sell them. So there's a young lady that's pushing for this. She's trying to raise $40,000 is the next step. And from everything I've seen and everyone I've spoke to, in my opinion, that's, if we can find someone that's interested, if anyone of your listeners that are financially, could help, we have a direction that will help.
Okay.
That's one direction. I think, in my opinion, that's the best direction. How
do they contact about that direction?
They can go on the page and message
on
me
the page.
For the page.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about, get on the page and talk about it. And I think that's fingers crossed, that really could help, and that could be a big difference. The other direction is, we're speaking with National Marine Fisheries a lot. There's a new, and they're listening. They're every post on the page. They talk about. They talked about us for the shark tournament. After the shark tournament, I got all excited because Jason said, "Hey, you got contacted, and they want to know the numbers." And there's a miscommunication where I was like, "Oh yeah, they want us to do a release tournament to get a sandbar number." That's one of the biggest issues, is that there's more sandbars. They've admitted off to the side.
They lifted the regulation on them, right?
No.
I mean, they put the regulation on them. The opposite of what I said.
Sandbars are completely 100% commercial or recreational. Can't catch can't kill a sandbar. Sandbars are apparently good eating, and they had a big market for them. And while they're catching sandbars, they're also catching some bulls to help keep the bull shark population down. And that was one of the big species that the commercial guys made it worth them to rig their gear and go shark fishing. They totally install sandbar fishing. We've heard rumors that they're like, yeah, we may have jumped the gun on that. They kind of hinted. I say maybe National Marine Fisheries might have kind of hinted, and I kind of jumped the gun, and they came back and said, whoa, we didn't say anything about, literally fly and got the call from them because he works with them or his
Mm-hmm.
advisory board from them. They're saying, hey, who said anything about us saying we want you to throw a tournament, And I had to apologize and say, oh, no, it was a miscommunication.
Right.
If allegedly, if we have, or when we have realistically another shark tournament, we're going to do a release tournament now. And if we do a release sandbar tournament, and which is actually originally what I would like to do, is have a sailfish format,
right?
Where you're filming all the releases and get the good, top boats in
grab
it.
the leader and all
grab
that.
the leader,
Yeah.
show release and count. I mean, can you imagine if we did that? I mean, we could have, if you could get, say, a 50, 100 boat tournament,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of numbers that we see out there that Thomas has confirmed are out there. If we can go out, and the reason we didn't have a ton of numbers in the shark tournament we just had is because everyone was fishing for bull sharks. I don't know about you, but I spoke to a lot of people that said, we sat there with a dozen sandbars around the boat.
Couldn't touch them.
And we picked up, moved, and went to the next spot, and there was a dozen sandbars, and be like, we couldn't catch a bull shark because every spot we went, there's nothing but sandbars, and we weren't even putting a line in the water.
Well, that's what every time I talk to Art about it, bull sharks and everything like that. He's like, sandbars.
Yeah.
And he'll always just shrug his shoulder every time. It's sandbars.
Sandbars.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you see it. I mean, you're on the water every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't fish the bottom. The sandbars are the ones, in my opinion, that every time if I put a goggle eye down, I can't fish a goggle eye on the bottom rung.
Mm-hmm.
Even a pilchard. For those people that don't know, we're talking about an inch bait compared to a 3-inch bait.
Right.
A small pilchard, you can't fish a dead bait on the bottom because sandbars eat it. Even a small pilchard, I've had them eat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, that's a shark on the bottom. It's a sandbar.
Yeah.
The bull sharks are the one eating the sailfish. And, the sandbars are eating all the bottom fish.
Right.
So but the population of sandbars there's so many more. They're the ones that you see in the video.
Right.
That the Shark Bands guys did, and they're dropping the camera, and you see a couple hundred of them in every video of all the sandbars. They're out of hand.
One of the reasons why I think it's so important to kind of make the statement that I don't think that it's so much the shark feeders is because when that started getting criticized, then it brought a lot of the divers into the conversation, and I think they felt the need to defend themselves. And therefore, ergo, defend sharks, right? And I want to make it clear that I personally don't have anything against divers, right? I really don't. And other people may feel differently, and that's okay too. Listen, you want to play Yankees, Red Sox on this thing, go for it. You know what I mean? I don't look at it that way. Like, my argument is not against divers. My personal argument is not. My argument is based upon what I see and what I hear, and it's different now. And that's just a plain fact. I don't claim to have all the answers. I do claim to have a lot more facts, and I don't think a lot of people are speaking with facts, or they're not speaking factually correctly when they're talking about the matter at hand. And the argument is I want to say against the sharks, but it kind of is, if we're being honest. And no one's looking to annihilate them off the face of the planet. But it gets very frustrating when you're out there. You spend a lot of money, or your clients have spent a lot of money. You got a big spread out. You spend it all day. You know what I mean? Not everyone gets to fish on the water every day like a lot of the pros do. And when you do get out, you know what I mean? And more than half your catch is being eaten by sharks at the boat. Gets a little frustrating.
So the frustration on our part is, and you have it on both sides. Like you said, there shouldn't be a separation of divers and fishermen.
I don't like that. And Yanni was even saying this like a couple weeks ago. He's like, I never grew up like this. I never sharks versus fishermen, or divers versus fishermen thing.
As a private boat captain, for all the years I work on private boats, and all the boats that work on private boats, half the time your boss wants to go scuba diving. That's fine. That's what we do. I grew up as a I was a huge free diver.
Right.
I do 100 feet.
Oh, we all
free
go
diving.
lobstering.
Well, lobstering. I do 100 feet. I
Sure.
just always, I stopped getting in the water now because of sharks. You know, unfortunately, I miss free diving because I'm like, you can't go. The sharks are so bad.
Right.
And there's a lot of divers and a lot of free divers and scuba divers that are on the page are saying the same thing. The argument that we see a lot, there's a few of them. One of them is, they get very passionate about the sharks because we see the same sharks over and over on the dive sites, and they become like our pets. Okay, fine.
Let's state for the record, it's not a manatee, it's fish.
Right. It's a fish. Okay.
Right.
And we're not trying to wipe out all the sharks. Okay. And on that note, the other argument, the biggest one we see, which is we can, until we're blue in the face, it's the most ridiculous argument, and that keeps going over and over is, but the population of sharks are down 70%. National Geographic, the article says, it's 18 different species of sharks and rays have a population down 70%. There's over 200 species of sharks. Okay. So, and in Australia, they're having, there's a page that's based out of Australia that I've been talking to, and they've completely stopped all shark fishing in Australia. So there's a lot of people in Australia right now, fishermen and divers are having issues with the amount of sharks in Australia. And what they're pushing for is to change the nomenclature to not stop saying sharks.
Oh, we're going to say they, them?
Nope.
No. What are we going to say? They've got a new name. Rename it, right? That's the MO?
Right. No.
Right?
We exactly.
You want to change history? Rename something.
No, because we shouldn't talk about sharks here. We need to talk about our local bull shark and sandbar shark population.
Okay.
Because when people say, you're out to kill sharks, and you're saying it's too many sharks. No, we're saying there's too many of our local bull shark and sandbar shark population. I don't think there's too many hammerheads out there. I don't think there's too many makos out there.
Yep.
I don't think, no. I think
not that many tigers, rarely ever see them.
No.
Yeah.
No, tigers are cool to see. So.
Every time a great white shows up in the area, it's all over social media.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I think there's too many. 2 days ago, or the 13th today, 10-year-old lost a leg. Do you see it? Another shark attack.
I saw Brick posted up today the 4 recent undocumented attacks happened in the Keys.
Correct. Little Keys.
Yeah, this past month.
Yeah, bull shark.
Yeah.
We're talking about bull sharks. We're talking about, we're setting another record every year, a record, the amount of bull sharks that are out there that are attacking people. And back to what I was saying, another argument, we're in their water. No, it's our water. It's our ecosystem.
So let's talk about that, because it goes to a larger question when you say that, like overall, or not even a question, just a larger statement about saying, it's their environment. It's like, okay, in one way I understand that. Is it their environment? Why? Because they can work faster and they're more nimble in that environment. You know what I mean? We're in that environment and makes it our environment.
Is it because we can choose not to be in the water?
Exactly. It's a tough thing to navigate when that's said, because as a species, we don't have gills, we don't have fins, we don't have the muscle structure to move like that in the water, right? And we don't live in that water, we don't breathe that water. Okay, does that make it theirs, right? Or as human beings, right? Are we not apex over everything?
We're apex over everything, we're responsible.
So therefore we have to be stewards of all this.
Correct.
Right. Correct. And that really, I think, ultimately is the point. So how we become stewards of all this is another matter. Right.
So I think one of the
this is where we're at.
Correct. I think one of the root issues is psychologically, I love all fish. I
do too.
Look
around you.
Correct. I'm look at your pictures. Your wahoo, marlin, dolphin.
Look at this one, for crying out loud.
Swordfish, porpoise, everything.
I love my makos on that one.
Fish. It seems that we're running into an issue where people don't want to admit it, but they love sharks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are these pages, and I see it over and over online, and people are like, "Oh, I love sharks." I'm like, what about the rest of the fish? How about we love all fish? I love the ecosystem. I love being on the water, right? I love fishing and diving and all parts of being on the water, and I want it all to last. And when someone strictly focuses on one species, which they're strictly focusing on sharks, they're not realizing that sharks take a certain amount of other species, and the way the ecosystem works is that everything is sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a bunch of people argue with me online recently saying, no, catching sharks is not sustainable. I'm like, you don't understand what sustainable means. I'm like, what about if you catch one shark every 10 years? Is that okay? Because if that's okay, that means one every 10 years. That's a sustainable amount.
Mm-hmm.
Now, realistically, what's sustainable amount? To say that shark fishing is not sustainable, that means you don't understand what the word sustainable means.
Yeah.
And back to what I was saying,
they're personalizing these things.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And they're making them be something. They're making them out to be something they're not.
Correct. So the right thing to say is local bull shark and sandbar shark population is sustainable. Sharks right now overseas in certain parts of overseas in Asia and stuff, catching them is not sustainable because they're at a point where their population, you shouldn't catch any. Eventually, hopefully, we get them back to it. Here, our populations are local populations of sharks. And that has, what I was saying about Australia, what they're trying to do is say, hey, they're trying to separate themselves from other parts in the world. And so I think that might be the biggest help that we can do is start referring to sharks as our sharks, our local populations of sharks. I'm not saying our as in the possessive.
See, when you first said that, I totally thought you were saying like, we need to call them like, soft and cuddly things, like give them a different name so that doesn't like villainize them.
Well, I think that's right? that's the root. I'm guessing. How does someone love sharks so much doesn't care about anything else? Well, I don't have kids. I got nieces and nephews, and I know plenty of people with kids. I can go to any one of my friend's house that has a child that's under 5 years old. I can walk through their house, and I guarantee you they have a stuffed shark or a cartoon shark somewhere in their house.
Yeah. Baby shark.
It's you don't see baby sailfish.
Listen, I tell you one thing right now. You put my 5-year-old kid or whatever they just mentioned me or my 9-year-old, my 11-year-old in the water and a shark comes around. Yeah, no longer are we in their environment anymore. You're in my environment and you're going down. Right? So, I mean, ultimately, is that the deciding factor? Right? It's saying, okay, we're in the water. We made this decision to be in the water, right? The ocean is, we are of the earth. We're in the ocean. There's no problem with that, right? So when I see something that's deemed a threat to me or my family, right? And then I have to eliminate that threat. There's not a human being on the earth that's going to argue with me that I eliminated that threat, or are they going to be like, oh, your 9-year-old got taken out by a shark. Oh, well, you're in their environment. No, they're going to be like, it's a tragedy. You kidding me?
I sent a link of a couple of the recent tragedies where the Addison girl lost her leg, and now this one to a couple of the pages where people are like, oh, sharks, dogs kill more people than sharks. So I'm like, tell that to this person. I got kicked off the page. I'm not the one threatening people. I'm bringing up a legitimate conversation that, yes, sharks don't kill as many people as other things do. But that's like saying drinking and driving doesn't kill as many people as cancer. You still shouldn't drink and drive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, the averages are, you know what I mean? The land-based things and land-based things are going to kill land-based things more often than land-based and water-based things are, because you're both going to be in the environment longer together than not.
Correct. So if we have too many bull sharks, and finally in the news, it's like the sharks are doing their part. Because we have the shark tournament, and since we have the shark tournament, it's like every week or every other week there's been a shark attack. And for the first time on one of the local news, it's you see over and over they talk about shark encounters, or do we call them shark attacks? And they're like, oh, they're blaming on global warming, blaming on this and that. Forget where it was. I saw it for the first time. I was like, oh, they actually said it. They mentioned, maybe because of the population increase of sharks. it's like they avoid that completely. So it's because there's more human beings, are in the water because they don't have as much food, and that's why people are getting bit by sharks more and more. They won't admit.
Right.
And I'm like, how about there's more sharks because of proper shark management?
Do you watch Shark Week at all?
Okay, this is good. I watched the one Shark Week I watched. I'm a Jackass fan, so I had to watch it, the Jackass one, which was completely ridiculous just for the fun of it. But I did spend enough time in the Bahamas. I scrolled through to see is anything worth watching. Jump through, and it's all great white stuff. And I'm like, whatever, like 99%.
That's why I stopped watching it.
It's
like for years I used to like get all amped up for Shark Week. I was like, yeah, and then it turned out to be nothing but like great white this, great white that, great white this, great white that. So I stopped watching, right? And I can only imagine. I mean, I haven't watched any of it like in a couple of years, really.
So I recorded the one on Pig Beach.
Okay.
It was called, and I was like, what's this Pig Beach? And it said, have local shark populations in the Bahamas developed a taste for the suing pigs? And I was like,
really.
God, I got to record this. So I watched it, and it was an entertainment show. It was not entertaining, but it was not factual. It was complete entertainment, and there was lie after lie.
That's why I stopped watching. It's all sensationalism, and then they'll cut the commercial right before the one moment you've been waiting for 20 minutes to see, and then
so they had
the teaser thing. I hate that format.
Oh, they said, here we are in the exhumed shark beach, and they had a drone shot, and then they had the guy hosting the show standing in the water around the pigs. And I look behind him, and there's a structure behind him. I'm like, that's the new shark beach in the Abacos. So he's not in the exhumed.
So it wasn't the exhumed.
Complete line saying the exhumed is in Abacos. And then he said, well, what if we're going to swim out a little deeper and see if there's any sharks out here. And then they switch, and now they're on Abernathy's boat in White Sands off West End, still claiming that they're an exhumus.
So it's like all in the editing.
All editing, and they're like, and they dropped a fake pig in. They're like, let's see if the shark, and if these sharks will get the taste for pigs. And there's a bunch of tiger sharks around, and they're not even near where the pigs are in the Abacos, saying that they're an exhumus. And this is on Discovery Channel or Net Geographic Channel. It goes back and forth, whichever one. And I'm like, so it's not like they have a disclaimer beforehand saying this is for entertainment purposes. And there's so many people watching this thinking that this is factual, because Shark Week originally started as an educational thing, but because of money or whatever it is, they're doing it for entertainment purposes. And right now, after watching this year's Shark Week, how many hundreds of thousands of people will go and fly to the exhumus or fly or whatever and go, oh, pigs. Oh, there's probably a bunch of tiger sharks here because they eat on the pigs.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, I mean, that's what it really comes down to. Like, no, not all of it, but some of it comes down to just misinformation, I think, in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying that all the information is misinformation, but, there's no way to really navigate it, truthfully speaking, because I think a lot of people that perhaps are signing petitions or getting on board for things, or maybe not understanding all the facts, or they don't understand what it's like to be in ground zero and really understand the true landscape or seascape, if you will, of what's really going on. So it's tough to fight that battle when there's so many on board, when they see all these edited social media clips and videos, and they say, oh, there's people diving with great white sharks. It's like, well, that person has 25 years experience doing that. You know what I mean? And you got a couple coins rubbing in your pocket, and you want to take a vacation and try to do that yourself. It's probably not going to end well. So that's not really the norm, I guess is my point.
At a point in time, or a lot of point in times, I was like, this is a losing battle, but I'm going to keep at it. And Pat and I were like, we got to do something. We just got to keep talking about it. we got to keep sending letters. We're at every Zoom meeting
Mm-hmm.
because it was during the pandemic with National Marine Fisheries, and said, hey,
Yeah.
we kept at it, and everyone we went to said, well, what are you going to get out of it? And back to how you started, I was like, we don't know where it's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to give up. And in Pat's memory, I swore I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep discussing it. And so
Right.
we're here discussing it. And a lot of people say, hell, all you're doing is complaining. Be like, I'm bringing it out there. I'm trying to say that there's an issue and bring awareness to it. And I'm not out there threatening anyone like all the death threats that Jason and Folly got for throwing the tournament.
That's insane to me.
That's insane.
Yeah, they would actually take it to that level. But
they put their names on, they chase their put their family down. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to keep in one of the reasons, besides coming to see you and see the shop, one of the reasons I want to come here is just keep it out there. And like I told one of the reporters when we talked to the reporters for the shark tournament, I said, if I had called you before this tournament and said, hey, we have an issue here. Our ecosystem's out of balance. The sharks are eating everything. We're going to run out of snappers pretty soon. We're going to run out of cobia, the sail fishery, which is when I explained to one of the guys, I was like, hey, 10 years ago, if someone caught 10 sailfish, or 20 years ago, if someone caught 10 sailfish, you'd hear about it from Miami to Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Then that was 20 years ago. Then 10 years ago, because of the advent of circle hooks and proper release methods, now you need to catch 50 sailfish for someone to talk about it. Because a 10 sailfish day is like, you don't even bother telling anyone because it happens. We're going the opposite direction right now. And I told Ellen this, and I said, hey, we've come so far because of our conservation methods. And just showing you that we actually are, even though we're fishermen, we're conservationists. And we've brought this population of sailfish back so much. When I was a charter captain, the generation before me hang every sailfish. They killed them. All we did was J-hooks. Tarpon too. And we brought them back. Now we can all catch them. And now we're going the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to think that to tell the next generation, I was at the peak of it when there was a bunch of them. And we did everything we could to allow the next generation to catch more and more sailfish and more tarpon and more of everything and snapper and grouper and everything. But what happened? Well, we didn't control the shark population.
A couple things come to mind too. We started out this show talking about the do-gooders, right? Obviously, we care about our environment. We care about our ecosystem. We care about conservation. I don't think anyone cares about conservation more than Florida's anglers. I'm talking about the world. Like the Floridian angler, I think has got to be on the forefront in their hearts of all conservationists across the planet, right? We talked about the difference between the word environmentalist and conservationist. I'd love to we've talked about this on the show before, where I'd love to bring that word environmentalist now closer to conservationist, because I think that word has been bastardized over the years and it's been taken so far away from its true meaning, because we envision these people like mad in the streets holding non-recycled posters and just being absolute crazy about something that they've probably never even been in that environment before, right? So we discussed earlier about the conservationists are the people that are actually in there, right? And the Floridians are on the forefront, and the Floridian angler is on the forefront of conservation. I just want to make that clear. Like, nobody cares about the environment of this state. Nobody cares about clean water and our fisheries and our coastal restoration and the fact that, things like Roundup need to be banned and crap like that. That's just like really very, very bad for everything we do. I want to put in perspective one thing when you talked about Australia. Australia is a country that you could fit within the United States, but you wouldn't have much room left. The entirety of the country of Australia is 28 million people. The entirety of the population of the state of Florida is 24 million people. You are not going to, and the vast majority of which live along the coastline, you are not going to stop fishing. You are not going to stop diving. We got to solve this problem because it doesn't end well if we don't. And that's ultimately where I come from on the issue. Is like, you got to recognize that there is something going on that's different than it has been in the past. Do we claim to have all the answers? No, but we do have people that are on our side that are smarter than you and I, that do present facts and bring it to the table. Politically, it gets tied up. Politically, it gets messy, right? Thank God for people like Ellen Peel, who toes the line for us, who explains things like the difference between this type of long lining versus this type of long lining, which has a deeper impact on our environment, and she understands why, and she has the data to back it up. She is the one on the Hill fighting for us in D.C. to talk about the issue, right? And again, we're not trying to annihilate our enemy, just trying to get along.
That's, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're, at the end of the day, we want all species to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in order to do that, we need to curb certain species getting wiped out.
Yeah.
And while I think our proponents are like, oh no, shark species are in great decline, our local bull shark, sandbar populations are not, and have gotten to a point to where they're affecting other species of fish. And it's easy to show. It's easy. It's not like something we need to prove.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is come out in the water, take you fishing, and just to say, oh, we don't see them as, if I go diving one day and don't see a shark, doesn't mean that they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
We're fishermen. We're professionals at seeing these things and catching them. We're the ones that really know the true populations of fisheries, of fish, and we're the ones that report back. And hence, I think a release tournament. We can, if you need video,
might be a good solution.
If you won't take our word for it, fine. Then
ride along.
Yeah, ride along, or tell us to go out and take a bunch of pictures, catch a bunch of, there you go.
Yeah.
There's your stock assessment that really we want to push towards.
This is going to be, has been for a couple of years now, but is going to continue to be an ongoing conversation here at Connected by Water. And I think we laid out why today. And I think it's important that we keep this as like a topic of discussion on the show. And I want to say, for anyone that's been listening to this show that disagrees with anything that we said or everything that we said, we invite your voices. And we do want to hear from you. We're not trying to shut them out, right? We want to have conversations. We want to have meaningful, level-headed, civil conversations about this topic. And this speaks to some of the knee-jerk emotional things that have happened recently that have been deemed as a threat to a lot of members of our fishing community, which is unfair. And so if you want to, put your emotions at the table, please message us. I want to hear from you. And you can always contact Doug at the Sportsman Fighting for Marine Balance page, and he would like to hear from you. This is not something that we want to avoid people on. We would like to discuss it, head on. And I'm not even going to say we'd like to confront it head on. We'd like to discuss it head on. So we're not looking to get into a fight with anybody. This is something that we're passionate about, and we want to discuss as well. And we've had side conversations with certain people that we might be bringing on guests in the future that will present the opposite argument to the other side of the table. We welcome that. We most certainly do. So I don't want you to think that this is a one-sided conversation right now. It's a one-sided conversation perhaps with Doug and I here, but we're just expressing our point of view, but we want to open the mic and just explain to everyone that we want to be fair to the argument.
I send out some messages. We invited some people along, and one of the reasons we said let's do the show is that, as it turned out to be just you and I, is that hopefully someone listening know someone, and we can take a copy of the show and say, hey, here's what we said. I'm sure you have a lot of cons to our pros and counterpoints. We have a chair.
Yep.
You have some good rum.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Come sit down
100%.
and let's talk about this. And let's get a National Marine Fisheries person here. Let's get a diver here. Let's get, this is a way to figure this out.
100%. 100%.
Talk about it.
Doug, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for driving down here and then the monsoon all the way down from Jupiter. And appreciate you giving me your time this evening. And it really, really is meaningful. It means a lot. And it's nice to hang out with you again, and over, just have some rum, if not anything else. Right? So cool. You boys good over there? Yeah? Yanni and Nick over there behind the controls. Thank you guys so much. All right. I want to mention the do-gooders here one last time, right? At C Redwine, SEA Redwine, at Dennis Friel Art, at Connected by Water, at starbright_com. If you have a nominee for a do-gooder, please message us and just let us know who that might be. And I want to give a shout out to our good friends over here at Olakai, who continue to be good friends of the studio. And, obviously olakai.com if you ever need anything from there. It's just the most amazing footwear company on the planet. All right, cool. If you're in the market for a new truck or vehicle, go ahead and call our buddies over there at Joey Carty Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and they will hook you up. If you say you're with the Connected by Water podcast, you're going to get a better deal than everyone else. Well, I say that. They don't say that. That's cool. Give them a call. Also, we've been drinking Papa's PLR rum. Just to let you know that I am on the MO of eliminating soda with my rum and including coconut water, and it has been one of the better discoveries of my lifetime. So you might want to give that a shot. That's just my tip of the day for the Papa's PLR rum. And if you're hungry, head on over to Papa's Raw Bar to order something off the Connected by Water inspired sushi menu that they have over there. You can get the Jumblicious wet roll, your wet dream roll, you can get the Takizi dreaming roll, the OCD roll, the Surreal California roll. All our good buddies that are part of our Connected by Water community are available to be eaten on that menu. Cool. And I think we've checked all our boxes today, right, Yanni? Yeah? All right, cool. Doug Covin, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Your ego is not your amigo. Always do your best. At the end of the day, just let God do the rest. And do not ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we are all connected by water.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Cheers.